Well, hello there. How are you? I'm Richie Allen. Now, ordinarily at this point on a Friday, we would be halfway through making this week's episode of the Richie Allen television show in association with BVtv and Beyond Vision Media. But we're not going to do that today. This is kind of our Christmas message, or my Christmas message to the viewers of the television show and to those who listen to the radio show. So I'm just going to talk for a few minutes about the year that we've just had on the radio and television show, what we managed to achieve during that year, what we didn't achieve during the year, what's happened. I've got a few questions that have been asked by people, genuine questions that I'm going to address in the next few minutes as well and do the best that I can. I hope you're well, wherever you are. I hope you're looking forward to the Christmas break, to Hanukkah. Regardless of whether you're a believer or not, it's nice to spend time with people and to chill out and relax for a few days, which is what I'm going to do. It's been a pretty incredible year for me personally. The Richie Allen radio show is coming to the end of its very first year. And to coincide with that, as you know by now, Hayden Hewitt of LiveLeak.com fame and the man behind Beyond Vision TV, which I'll tell you more about in a few minutes, asked me to make a TV show weekly to coincide with the radio show. Because Hayden is one of those guys that believes unequivocally in free speech for everybody, regardless of the opinions you hold or the opinions you don't hold, regardless of whether he agrees with you or not. He believes passionately in every point of view being expressed through the media. That's a wonderful thing, by the way, and it's something I might return to in a couple of minutes' time. We've had pretty massive figures this year in terms of listening figures and viewing figures for both the radio and the television show. We're really thrilled with it. The radio show began in September 2014, but as I said, it's had its first full year, or it's coming to the end of its first full year this year, 2015. And we're in a very, very fortunate position in that we can show very clearly to our audience and to our hopefully potential sponsors going forward how many listeners we have. And the live radio show, which goes out live, of course, every Monday to Thursday, every weeknight, Monday to Thursday, not including Friday, averages over 40,000 listeners. That's during the 2-hour period we're on air. Now, I could be really anal and break that right down into the amount of streams that are logged on and for how long and the average and all of that. But I've published all that material before. I don't need to do that. But that's a pretty wonderful achievement. And the podcast of the radio show, which goes online just after the radio show finishes, gets around about 80,000 downloads a month, which is kind of extraordinary, really. Are you bragging, Richie? What's that really all about? Well, what it's really all about is what can be achieved in the independent media when it's supported by those who have an appetite for it, those who want it. And in our case, our programme is almost exclusively sponsored by the audience. The audience were asked back in September 2015 to make a contribution to the independent media by donating on a regular or an irregular basis, depending on what people could afford, to keep the programme ongoing. And that's how it's been, basically. Yeah, we've had one or two advertisers along the way, but largely it's been listener funded because, as Hayden Hewitt knows, and as anybody who's worked within this arena before knows, however many listeners you have, getting people to advertise their product with you is not very easy. And that's because of the nature of the information that's discussed on these programmes. So question number one that I get asked all the time, and it's a fair question, and any number of people watching this now will know this, that because they've sent me emails going, Richie, are we reaching people? Well, there's two ways of looking at that. Way one is, are we reaching people? Who are we reaching? Are we reaching people whom are predisposed to or who have an inclination to listen to the independent media anyway? Another way of saying that is, are we preaching to the converted? That's the question that kind of keeps me up nights, to be honest. I think it's a question that's kept David Icke up nights over the years as well. Are we actually reaching somebody, one person, two people, 100 people, who previously thought that the sort of information that we talk about, well, is silly? Or worse, it's crazy, it's insane, it's lunacy, it's conspiracy theory, it's not for me. Well, there's an awful lot of evidence that we are. Where is that evidence, Richie? Well, in fairness, it's anecdotal evidence. Obviously, a programme like yours, with the enormous audience that we have, we get a lot of correspondence. We get a lot of correspondence through email and through our Twitter account and through our Facebook account. And there is a lot of evidence that, because I think, as David Icke has said time and time again, as the agenda proceeds at a stampede now, not at a tiptoe pace it used to be progressing, it becomes more visible, and therefore more people are kind of putting their heads up and saying, well, Jesus, what's going on here? We get emails from people all the time saying, we've just arrived at your programme. I saw one of your programmes. I heard one of your episodes. I saw your TV show with Hayden Hewitt, and I back-checked a reference you made on the programme. I looked at a fact that you claimed on the programme, and I found it to be true. And all the time we get emails from people saying, well, can you now direct me elsewhere? Where should I now begin looking to find out more about this information? So I think we're not preaching to the converted. I think we're doing something that has never been done before in the independent media. And I think that's true for the television and the radio show. We're asking questions of the information itself. We're questioning the sources of the information. When our guests are coming on to talk about the nature of reality, about geoengineering, about historic child abuse, we're asking the sorts of questions that we wish the mainstream media presenters would ask if they had the courage to interview these men and women anyway. Because David Icke said, I don't know, 100 times over the last 3 years, he said it every day at TPV, anything that's true will stand up to any scrutiny. It doesn't matter where it's coming from. And we're not saying we're the greatest thing since sliced bread. This is the greatest independent media project ever. It isn't. We're not saying that at all. But what we're doing that's unique is we're asking questions about the information. It's as simple as that. And I think in doing that, we're reaching people on a scale, I think, that hasn't been previously achieved by other providers of alternative news and alternative information. I might have sounded like I was rambling there, but I think you get the point. It's all about questioning the info, not being scared to question the researchers. You know, men and women whom we admire for researching this information, asking them questions about it, challenging them to prove their assertions and to prove their conclusions. You know, I think the tyranny is out in the open. All this week on the programme, we've been talking about the Australian government's refusal to allocate David Icke a visa to go and talk in Australia. Now listen, get your tongue out of David Icke's arse, Richie. This isn't about that. David Icke has never been arrested in his life. He's never been charged with a crime, ever. At no time ever has anybody suggested that David Icke has... I don't even think the guy's ever had a speeding ticket, as long as I know him. And yet the Australian government, despite the fact that David is putting tickets on sale for a speaking tour of Australia next year, venues have been booked, huge interest in it, yet the Australian government have turned what should really be a 2 to 3 week decision in terms of giving the man a visa. It's gone on now for months, and there's no sign of them giving him an answer, even though there are people in Australia, legal people, working on asking this question. Why is that? Why would a government not want a guy to come and talk? A guy who they've deemed as absolutely insane, a guy who they've called a crazy conspiracy theorist. Why would they do that? Well, there's a long and a short answer to that, and I'm not going to give you either. Watch that one closely. Like I said, the tyranny is out in the open. When governments, when prime ministers can label people terrorist sympathisers for standing against the bombing of people in Syria, when home secretaries can say that we need to tackle non-violent extremism, even people who are not promoting violence but are saying things that might stir people up and stir emotions in young men and women, to radicalise them. When they're saying things like that, you know that we've got a serious problem. And it's our job in the independent media to make people aware of that, people who, as I said, who haven't previously paid attention to us. So I've gone a long way around addressing that question or addressing that point. Are we getting somewhere? I think we are. And as the numbers continue to grow and as we continue to operate in a different way to other alternative media outlets in terms of the way we do our business. I think David used to say in London a few years ago, we need to sound as polished and as well, he never said sexy, but I'll say sexy, as the mainstream media, but be different in what we say and how we approach it. And I think we've achieved that. I recommend I don't endorse very much, but I'm going to endorse the Full Circle Project. Go to fullcircleproject.net because of what they're doing. They're apolitical and they're pretty sane and they're pretty sound in, bringing people together who are thinking about this information, particularly people who are thinking about it for the first time. So, yeah, I think we are reaching people. And I think while there are a lot of people who knew all about this information already, listening to these programmes, which is a good thing, I think a lot of our audience is pretty new to it. So in the year ahead, on the television and in the radio show, we just want to do more of it. We want to bring more information to the attention of people that is being ignored by the corporate media, which, as you know now, and you don't need to be bored by this by me because you've heard it so many times before, is owned largely by 6 mega corporations whose job isn't to educate you, by the way, whose job is to dumb you down and to sell you products and to make sure that you're the absolute opposite of awake and alive to what's going on. I think yesterday was a great example of that. I'm preparing the Richie Allen radio show yesterday afternoon, as I do, from my little office at home. And Sky News go from 3 p.m. to 20 past 4 p.m. talking about nothing else other than a football manager being fired from his job. What's even more tragic about that is when you complain about it on Twitter, the trolls come out screaming about, it is big news. Football is big news in this country. It's big news. It's big news. No, it isn't. It isn't. On a day when we learned that 100,000 English children will be homeless this Christmas. On a day when the British Prime Minister is telling lies to the British people as he claims to be getting a better deal for Britain in Europe. On a day when we learn that much of the ordnance that's being dropped on Yemen by Saudi Arabia, many of the bombs they're using were bought from Britain and were knowingly sold by our government, knowing full well what they were going to be used for. There's something very wrong when a news agency spends 90 minutes uninterrupted talking about a football story. To make it worse, sending a helicopter to hover over the training ground at Chelsea to seek and to catch a glimpse of the beleaguered manager. This is serious stuff here. So it's our ambition to try and reach bigger and greater numbers, not only on the radio show, but on the television show in the new year. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to continue with your help to improve the quality of our output. That's most important. Nobody's sitting on their laurels here going, oh, we're an amazing radio show. We've got tens of thousands of listeners. We're the dog's bollocks, basically. Aren't we great? Nobody's doing that. There are massive improvements that we can make in the radio programme in terms of how it sounds and how it's projected, how it's sold to people, I suppose, for want of a better word. And we're going to do that. The television show will evolve all the time. The wonderful Hayden Hewitt and the people at Beyond Vision Television have done a remarkable job with very little time and with very little resources in what they've done with it already. I think they've made it look pretty sexy. I think the television show looks really good. We don't always get it right. There are sometimes we make mistakes. I make mistakes on it. I make mistakes in some of the, in the way I present it. But look, it's a bit rough and ready, but we're working on it all the time. And in the new year, we plan on, we plan on making it something truly special and truly remarkable that's going to get a lot of attention. And again, importantly, by doing that, drawing attention to the information that we're talking about. So those are the plans really for the year going forward. We've averaged about 10,000. If you take into account the way these things work, the way you add up logistics, the way you look at viewing figures and how many people look at a stream or how many people look at a YouTube video, we reckon about 10,000 viewers, I reckon is fair, have seen every episode of the Richie Allen television show here at Beyond Vision Media. That's a great thing, that really, isn't it? I mean, we're not supported by any network. We don't get any promotion. We're not advertised anywhere else. For us to do that once a week, to talk about those things, to talk about the historic child abuse scandal, to talk about geoengineering, whether it exists or whether it doesn't. I know you might have opinions on that. I know Hayden does. I have my opinion, it's different, but that's all good. All the things we talk about, the nature of reality, all these things. To be getting 10,000 views a week, I think is bloody good. I really do. And it's going to get bigger and bigger. We plan in the new year, maybe not in the early new year, but later on in the new year to do one of the radio shows live in the television studios here, just for the hell of it. I think it would look great. It would be more interactive. Our listeners could take part then via Skype video by coming on the show via Skype video. Hayden's got such a background in films himself in his career. He's really anxious to do that. We are going to look into maybe doing a question time type. Now, we won't be able to fill the studio with hundreds of people or anything like that, but we'd like to do a question time type television show where we get people in from different backgrounds into the studio to talk about that information. That's all in the pipeline in the new year as well. So it's all good, really. It's all good. It's been a great year. It really has. And it's for me now to thank you for watching these programmes, the TV programmes, and for listening to the radio show and for donating to the radio show. I've not done so many appeals for funding for the radio show in recent months. And that has two consequences. One, people think, oh, the radio show's doing really well financially. That's why he's not asking for money. And that's not true. The reason why I don't ask for money is because I kind of got tired of it. I come from a place where I've been gainfully employed for pretty much all my work in life. And being in a position of asking our radio listeners to make a contribution never sat well with me, even though it's the only way the radio show can survive. So I eased up on asking for donations. The fact is, it needs a constant stream of monthly funding from you, the listener to the radio show. And I'm asking you to consider, if you haven't donated before, to doing it again, if you think it's worthwhile. If you listen to the show, if you download the podcasts and you think it's worthwhile, you think it's a quality a show and a quality product, I ask you to support it. So basically go to richieallen.co.uk, that's my website. All the information is on there on how to donate to the radio programme. It's as simple as that. Do a PayPal donation or do a bank donation, whatever you can afford. Somebody said something to me the other day which I thought was really, it really touched my heart actually. Somebody said, Richie, I spoke to a friend of mine on Facebook and they didn't want to donate because they would be embarrassed that they could only donate 50p or a pound. And I said, Jesus, that's an incredible thing. It never occurred to me. Listen, if you've got 50p or a pound to donate to a live radio show or a podcast, whether it's me or whether it's somebody else in the independent media, there's some fantastic programmes in the independent media that need support as well. Don't for a minute think that 50p or a pound or $1 or $5 is embarrassing. It isn't embarrassing. Absolutely not. It's a wonderful thing. It's an amazing thing. And for somebody who donates £50 or £100, to me, the person who donates €1 or a pound or $1, it's exactly the same. I treat it exactly the same. It's a wonderful thing and it's equally as important. So don't ever think that. Don't ever think that you'll be embarrassed by sending me a pound or so. It's ludicrous. Don't think that at all. It all counts. It really does. So that's richieallen.co.uk. I don't know what else I can say really. Other than I just want to thank a few people for their undying support this year in general. I want to thank David Icke because David is I think he's been and remains the greatest supporter and the greatest champion of the independent media there's ever been. If you look at davidicke.com/headlines, it's just full to the brim of David sharing and then, by the nature of the fact that he shared it, exposed and given an audience to every day hundreds of articles, of videos from any number of men and women around the independent media. He's wonderful for doing that. And he's been a big champion of the radio show because he streams it on davidicke.com and he loves the television show and he's very excited, even though he doesn't have anything to do with the television show. All he does is he promotes it on davidicke.com. But, excuse me, editorially, he's got nothing to do with any of it. He's just a supporter of it. So huge respect to him for doing that. Check out davidicke.com. He's on tour around the world next year. On davidicke.com, you'll find links to where he's going to be. And I'll tell you something else. You know, I don't know exactly what the ticket prices are, but if they're 30, 40 or 50 bucks, I tell you what, to go and spend 10 hours with David Icke over a single day, it's money well spent. Go and talk to David. He's got a new book coming out as well. Advanced copies are available on davidicke.com. Check it out. It's called The Phantom Self and it promises to be a fantastic read. So Ike, thanks for everything, mate. It's totally appreciated and we hope that you have a terrific 2016. There's no doubt you will. I want to thank Paul Ripley at Fab Radio International. This means a lot to us here at BVtv. Fab Radio International is an independent online provider of radio programmes. It's a radio station online. It's only been around for about a year and it is doing unbelievably well. Their figures are absolutely off the charts. They're verifiable listening figures. They are wonderful people. They produce and present their programmes from a TARDIS at their studios in Manchester. They made a radio station out of a TARDIS. It's truly wonderful. They're connected to Starburst magazine, which is one of the best magazines in the world for the followers of, I don't know how I would say it, Hayden, followers of, you're not mic'd up, so you're not, so I can't talk to you. The followers of comic books.
Fantasy and sci-fi.
Fantasy and sci-fi, that's right. And cosplay and everything else. It's wonderful. So they've done really well. And from the get-go, they wanted to broadcast the Richie Allen show, the radio show. They even gave me my own channel, which is an amazing thing. Fab Radio 2 only plays the Richie Allen show 24/7. So it's probably nightmarish for some people when they come across it. But Paul Ripley, Merry Christmas to you and to everybody at Fab Radio in Manchester. You're going to have an absolutely massive year in 2016 as well. And to my great buddy Hayden Hewitt, who takes a lot of stick sometimes from followers of the independent media because he doesn't believe in chemtrails. That lousy bastard. Let me tell you about Hayden Hewitt, who's not mic'd up. You can hear him there in the background. Hayden Hewitt is everything that producers, editors and directors in the media should be. Why is he? Because he's a guy who believes in the right of everybody to express their opinion and for it to be heard. Now that should be full stop that. I don't care what Hayden Hewitt believes in terms of whether he believes in ancient aliens who interbred and that led us to be on the earth, whether he believes in as I said, geoengineering. It doesn't matter to me. He's a mate of mine. Now I could do a long-winded lecture about self-censorship in the independent media and why this falling out with one another, because we don't share the same belief systems, is ultimately destructive and does nobody any good. But I'm not going to give you that lecture. Hayden is my mate. I like him. I like his attitude. I like the way he operates. And I like the programmes he makes on liveleak.com, the Live Leak show every Thursday at 10:30pm GMT. Whether he agrees with me or not is irrelevant. He stands for freedom of speech more than anybody. Working within the media today, I should say, to qualify that I've ever met. That's extraordinary. That's an extraordinary thing. And it's his efforts and his endeavours that led to this television show going out every Friday here in Manchester. He's an extraordinary guy. Watch him closely. And liveleak.com, by the way, LiveLeak is like the last frontier. It's like the last link between the news as it used to be way back when and today. Things that are censored, are buried, are hidden, are kept away from people, are there for everybody to see on liveleak.com. They're not pretty. Pictures of war zones, pictures of people, videos of people coming to terms with their villages and their towns having been bombed. But that's what liveleak.com is to me. It's always meant that to me. And mate, thank you. Pleasure. Big thumbs up from Hayden Hewitt. And do go to beyondvision.tv, the website, and follow Beyond Vision TV on Twitter. That's a charity that's doing extraordinary things and will be doing extraordinary things over the next few months. And I'll tell you more about that on another video, and I will get into that on the Richie Allen radio show in the new year as well. So massive thanks to Hayden and to everybody at beyondvision.tv. And there are two really special guys that have helped us out all year long and ask for nothing. One is Aaron Calland, who manages the Richie Allen television show. Say it right, Richie. The Richie Allen radio show website. And that's richieallen.co.uk. One of the most selfless guys out there, Aaron Calland. Never asks for anything. Is a huge supporter of the independent media. And that's all he's interested in. And he's managed and kept the Richie Allen website going for most, if not all, of the year 2015. Thank you very much, Aaron, for that, mate. It hasn't gone unnoticed. And our YouTube channel, which now has nearly 22,000 subscribers, or 21,000 subscribers, and has had over 3.5 million views, in the last 12 months, which is staggering, by the way. Again, this isn't boastful. I'm telling you this because you paid for it. You paid for it by donating to the show. Therefore, you're entitled to hear this information. 3.5 million views in a year, 21,000 subscribers. And the channel is managed by Simon Stewart, my mate in Nottingham. Simon, thanks very much, mate, for that. You have a massive Christmas. Have a massively wonderful Christmas, I should say, with your family there. And that's it, really. And to you for watching and paying attention to the independent media, for sharing it on your social media pages, on your Twitter pages and all of that, and championing it and donating to it and making sure that it gets out there. I thank you very much. Have an absolutely wonderful, special, magical Christmas or Hanukkah, or whether you believe or don't believe, whether you're just spending time with your family. Rest up well, and let's have a fantastic 2016. I'll leave you with that. Bye for now. Thank you.